Welcome to Bigfoot Society. If you have Bigfoot activity to report from the same areas discussed in this episode, please reach out to me directly after this episode. And if you'd like to be on the podcast to discuss a personal Bigfoot encounter, please reach out to me directly at bigfootsociety@gmail.com. Do you wish there was more Bigfoot Society to listen to every week? Well, there is now. If you become a supporting member over at Patreon, you get a special members-only episode every single week on Wednesdays, and sometimes even more episodes. Head on over to patreon.com/The Bigfoot Society. And now let's get on with the show.
This is a pretty crazy one, Jeremiah. Are you sure you're ready for it?
I'm always ready to talk to you, man. I'm so glad to hear from you again.
Well, in July of 2017, my wife and I were coming home, and the reason I'm coming forward with this now is there were two police officers involved in Pagosa Springs, Colorado, and I know they're still out there, and I know they know what happened because there were other people who were driving by and saw it too. We were coming home from Colorado Springs, my wife and I. We both saw it. We were coming around, and behind the scene, there was a police car, and there was two police cars. One was a SUV, a white SUV with the Pagosa Springs police logo on it. The other one was a Pagosa Springs police patrol car, a regular one. The officer was sitting in the police car. The one was facing in the direction of oncoming traffic in the SUV, and the one who was in the regular patrol vehicle was facing the opposite, the forward direction, going the same direction we were, toward Farmington, New Mexico, where we were heading at the time. And as we're passing by, I saw what clearly was not a dead bear in front of the police officer's car. It was illuminated by the headlights. It was not a bear. My wife is certain it was not a bear. We both saw it. And again, this was like July 17th, 2017. And again, these two police officers, and I know there were several other cars that were passing, going both directions the same way we were, and going towards Pagosa Springs. We had just gotten outside of Pagosa Springs on the highway, and we're heading towards Durango, Colorado, and then we would have been heading back home to Farmington. Now, what happened was we were approaching the situation, and I begged my wife to stop because I'm positive that was a dead Bigfoot. The way it was laying, I couldn't see the face, or the head, because its head was facing the ground, and its body was kind of twisted up. It looked like it got hit by a vehicle. I don't know if it got hit by the cops or by somebody else. I couldn't tell you. But it was laying in the middle of the road, and it was dead. There was blood everywhere. I mean, there was blood on the guardrail, there was blood on the ground in a pool, and it had hair coming out of the body, black hair, and it had gray colored skin. And again, I couldn't see hands or feet because of the way the hands were laying under the body, and so, or the arms were laying under the body. What I did not see is I did not see ears on top of the head like bears have. Okay, it had a regular head. Its head was not, from the way the head was laying, I couldn't tell if it had the domed head or not. Because it looked like, again, like it got nailed and it got hit, and it looked like it was completely, like, just messed up. So whoever hit that was traveling at a high rate of speed. Again, my wife saw it. I begged her to stop. She would not stop because, number one, we were both exhausted, and she had to go to work in the morning, and number two, she was scared of the police and didn't want to get involved with that, and she was driving at the time, and she would not stop. And I begged her and begged her and begged her, because if that was a Bigfoot, we could have proved the species right there, right then. It would have been over. It would have been done with. As we passed it very quickly, and I only got about 5 or 6 seconds to look at it, but what I saw was clearly illuminated in the headlights, and I was about 3 feet from it when we passed by. And again, this is July 17th, 2017, and somebody out there saw it. Now, what I will tell you is the police officer, my wife said, was in his vehicle, the one that was facing the same direction we were going, towards Durango, Colorado, from Pagosa Springs. He was on his cell phone. He wasn't using his radio to call it in. So whatever he was doing, he didn't want the press to hear about it. If that was a dead bear, he wouldn't have cared. Here's the other thing. Again, it was about 12:30 a.m. in the morning, and we passed it going by. We got a really good look at it. Both my wife and I are confident it was not a dead bear. We checked the newspaper for 2 months afterward. No dead bears, no animal kills, nothing. Whatever happened to that thing, they got rid of it. And those two cops know what it was and what happened. And I know they wouldn't come out and say it because their jobs would be on the line. And I saw them about 3 years later, both of them, going out of a Walmart over there in Pagosa Springs. When we were passing by, it was the same two cops. And so I know they're probably still on the force, and I know they probably wouldn't come forward, but there were other people that were going home or going toward Pagosa Springs and going toward Durango who saw it. And again, now I fussed at my wife really bad on the way home because I was pissed. She would not stop. She would not stop. She was scared of the police. She didn't want to get involved. Now, my wife is African American, and and I'm not being weird, but a lot of African Americans, rightfully so, do not trust the police.
Oh, sure, yeah.
He did not want to get involved with that.
The cool thing about this is that the exact date that it happened and where the police officers would be from, which is Pagosa Springs, Colorado.
You remember we talked about Brenda Harris of the New Mexico Shadow Seeker?
Absolutely, yeah. Okay,
she's told me several times, because I've talked to her directly in person and through Facebook, through her group. She told me that there's a group that if a Bigfoot is killed, comes out on the reservation or in other places and takes the bodies away. Because she said there was a Bigfoot that was killed on the res, and some men in weird vans with no windows showed up, and they were some type of people who were government, and they confiscated everybody's phones, and they as soon as people were calling and saying it was a dead Bigfoot and they had shot it on the res in Farmington, New Mexico, the Navajo res.
Right.
And so she said that there is a governmental organization that comes in and finds these bodies, and they get called, and then it's never reported in the media. Again, if it was a dead bear, we saw dead deer in the paper. We saw, different animals getting hit, dogs, cats, all of that was in the newspaper. Okay, we checked. There was no dead bears, so don't try to tell me that was a bear. Okay, right. It didn't have ears on the top of his head. It didn't have the body of a bear. It looked like a dead person, but a lot bigger.
That is wild. I've heard a similar account from, it was either Oregon or Washington, where there are just these unmarked SUVs that showed up and pretty much threw huge something in a tarp in the back of their SUVs and got out of there as quick as they could. Yep. Brenda knows what she's talking about. I've talked to her before. She's incredibly smart, for sure.
And not just that, but she knows all about the skinwalkers and all that stuff too. And I've talked to people on the res many times, different people on the res who aren't her, because I work for the Salvation Army, as you know, right?
Right.
And at the time, I worked in the Salvation Army in Farmington, and I talked to people there. And in Durango, the Navajos talked about Bigfoots being seen out there. and in the Farmington area, the Bigfoot's being seen out there as well. And they've had people hit Bigfoot with trucks on the highways and stuff that Brenda heard about, and others. And the police come, they get on their cell phones and call a number. These white vans come out with no windows and they take it away. And it's never reported in the media, and everybody's silenced. I don't mean dead. I mean they don't talk about it on pain of, like, losing their careers and or possibly even their lives.
Absolutely, yeah. Who knows what would happen?
From what I was told by different people in different areas, natives, both Utes and others, Sioux and others, is that, there is a group that goes to different places, finds these things, and then drags them off, and then shuts everybody up about it. So I don't know if the police would talk about it, but I know for a fact there were other cars going back toward Pagosa Springs and toward Durango who were all driving by this thing. And again, my wife and I have seen dead bears, and what we saw was not a bear. I'm absolutely 100% confident in that. It was not a guy in a fursuit.
That's wild, Alex. Thank you for sharing that. That is really intense information. It's good to talk to you again. It's been a while since we last talked. I'm glad you contacted with this info, though.
I hope one of your listeners knows something or knows somebody who knows something and can come forward with it.
All right, Alex.
All right, take care, buddy.
Have a good one, man. Yep.
Bye.
Hey, Pammy, this is Jeremiah. What kind of things have you experienced?
Well, the first time I saw one was in 2012 when I was unpacking my apartment, and I went outside to have a cigarette, and in the back where my balcony was a stream, and this was April 15th, 2015, and I saw this huge guy at the edge of the river looking at kids playing in the this area of our parking lot, and they were grilling out there. And I'm like, that guy must be living in the woods. He's looking scraggly. But it was when I yelled, "Hey, you better not try to do anything with those kids." It turned and looked, and as it was walking away, but it did not leave the area. I saw the long hair on its arms and legs. And I've been having encounters ever since then. But in 2018 and 19, my cousins and I and my brother rented a house in Newtown, Connecticut. And my cousin's two younger kids were sleeping. All of our pets were in the living room with us. And in the mudroom, I thought either a raccoon came in or a mouse or a rat came in, because we lived in the woods. The house was in the woods. And it was just getting on my nerve, the crinkling of my Rottweiler's bag of dog food. And I look up and I see this huge big, we don't know how he got in because all the doors were locked, the windows were locked. It was in there, sitting right in the mudroom. I was sitting on the couch. I took a picture of it, but later events made me erase everything because the UFO had crashed. But anyways, my cousin, I was like, I took the picture. I said, "Do you see what I see in my picture?" And she said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, explain to me what you see." She goes, "A Bigfoot eating out of the dog's food bag, and he sees crumbs as you took the picture." I'm like, "Okay, I just wanted to make sure you didn't think I was nuts." But ever since then, ever since 2012, I was having encounters. And at my mother's place, she lived in an elderly building, that there was a high school on one side in the back of the woods and two elementary schools on the left side if you're facing the building. And they used to throw pebbles at my mother's window as soon as I'd walk through her door. And she would jokingly say, "Oh, your hairy friends want you to go outside and play." They would start coming up to to her bedroom window. And I asked her, "Please close your windows when you sleep at night. You're on the first floor." She goes, no one's gonna. I was like, and there's also a bear in the area. She wouldn't shut it. She would not shut it. And because I would take care of my mother like a few days a week, every day, but a few days a week, I would sleep over there and stay with her throughout the night. It would come up to the window, and in summertime, the stench that would come in through the window was horrible. It smelled like a decaying body, a skunk, and trash, all wrapped up in ones. And it was disgusting, where I couldn't even eat for 2 or 3 days after that, because it would just be playing over and over in my head. But my mother would never admit it to my brother. I mean, to my cousins and my brother. And, oh, sorry, I was getting a text. I'm trying to shut it off. And then after that, it started banging. My mother lived in this brick building, and it banged on a Saturday before Easter, because I was cooking. My cousin and I were cooking for my mother. We were going to have a little gathering for my mother. And the way, we didn't know what was happening, and the way it banged, it felt like a train crashed into the building. Easter Sunday was the next day, and I went outside around 8:30, and I was eating potato salad. Now, I don't eat ham, so I threw it in the woods maybe for a raccoon or these I thought I was seeing little white foxes, a little family of them. So I threw my ham to them. It didn't make it quite to the woods. All of a sudden, I hear a scream. The ground was shaking, and the meat ended up landing near this curb, not into the woods, not on the grass, right on the asphalt. It was this enormous, the width of this red hairy Bigfoot came out, and there was an elderly gentleman right next to me. We were he was having a cigarette break while I was eating, and it kept its back to me. That's the first time I was ever that close to one, but it was so huge. I thought I was going to puke and poop myself all at once. That's how scary, and the adrenaline that was happening, and it just kept its back to me. I don't know if it's because it didn't want to make me feel threatened or what. I just couldn't tell you. I have seen it many times after that. I have had taken pictures with it. I'm not that technology savvy, but they're in the Google pics or whatever, and they do pop up in the memories. But I'll tell you what, I stopped taking pictures and video because other stuff started happening. And there was, in this area where my cousins and my brother and I rented a house, the yard was as big as a football field. So we were splitting the rent, and it was only $480 a month. And it was like a 5-bedroom house, and it was built in 1886. It was gorgeous inside. And there was just a lot of crazy stuff happening. There was a UFO that crashed, and then these guys were nosing around the property and everything. And so I got rid of a lot of those photos, even that phone, because these men in black came. They didn't come knocking on our door, but they were in the area, and the landlord's property. There was in our driveway these three little, they looked like robot things. And I called my cousin. I'm like, are those your kids' toys? She came to the doorway. She goes, my kids don't have toys like that. They look like 3 little robots, but all lit up, and it was nighttime. We went outside I was on my way on the step outside to have a cigarette, and then we look across the street, and there was this massive size replica of the 3 little ones. So when these other people started poking around, and we also had Black Ops helicopters flying around right above the field of our yard. So I threw away that phone. I was like, there's no way. Nope. I don't want this type of, no. But it was scary, I'll tell you that.
Did all this happen in Connecticut?
And then our animals were being attacked. Our animals were being attacked from 3 p.m. I would drop my cousins off at work, and then I'd come home. And because I'm retired from nursing, I've been in the nursing field for 40 years. And so I'm retired, and I was taking care of my elderly mother that had cancer. So I'd come home, and I would make sure before leaving nothing was on. The TVs were not on; they were unplugged. And I'd come home to all the TVs in the house being on, and every single bathroom and kitchen faucet, and the showers upstairs and downstairs were on full blast. And we had the shower doors that opened, and so my cousin thought her cats were turning them on. But even if they were to have opened the door, the shower handles are so high up that the cats wouldn't be able to turn them on. And she just wouldn't believe us. She would not believe us. And then they started attacking our animals. My 200-pound Rottweiler ended up on one of these wardrobes. And it's like a wardrobe armoire. And my cousin's little dog she had her laundry set on top of this stand, and it was way high. So her little dog, there was no possible way for this dog to get inside of there by herself. And there was nobody home but me returning home because I dropped everybody off at work. They worked 3 to 11 shift. And so I shut it all off, and then again at 3:30, everything, all the waters and the TVs would turn back on. And my boy, okay, then I was, after I brushed my teeth and went to the bathroom, one of my cousin's cats came in, a 6-month-old cat came in the bathroom, and she was waiting probably for her treats or water being changed or a change of food. And all of a sudden, the cat was scared, and I asked, "What's the matter?" The hair stood straight up on its back, and a bicycle was thrown. The cat was levitated in the air and thrown against the window. Thank God I put plastic on the window because it was November, and it was starting to get cold. So I'm glad that I made it nice and tight because that cat bounced off of the window and it did not crack the window. But if there was not plastic winterized on that window, that cat would have definitely went through that window. And go ahead, I'm sorry.
Sorry, did all this happen in Connecticut?
It did. It did. Naugatuck, Connecticut was where my mother lived. And she lived in an elderly building. We lived in Newtown, Connecticut, but the first sighting that I saw was in Danbury, Connecticut.
Really?
Yes. And in 2010, it was Good Friday night, and I was visiting my friend in Oxford. And it was just so warm and beautiful. The first day from a very bad winter, I ended up falling asleep in my vehicle before driving home to Danbury. But I was watching the stars and the moon from my Pathfinder out the moonroof. Every window was open, even the hatchback. But in the hatchback was my purse, my keys, and some steamed chicken for my friend Chris's dogs. And I woke up, I had to pee so bad. 3:45 in the morning, I look at the clock. I'm like, oh, let me go in to go pee. I opened up the door. There was this massive dog man that about 4 feet diagonal from me. And it looked startled. And its eyes was going, and I looked every inch of this thing. And I only had a flip phone at that time, so I couldn't even take video or pictures, but it didn't move. I closed my door and I stayed in. I prayed. I said, Lord, please do not let this thing come in my vehicle, because they had no way to close my windows. I'm trying to call. Now, every night at a certain time, one of my friend's dogs, she had 4 dogs, and one of them every night faithfully started going nuts and snarling and trying to get through her glass windows to get at something, and she was going to let it outside. I said, don't you let it outside. There's something massive out there. And it wouldn't be good if you let it out. Come to find, and so the next day she woke me up. She goes, "What? Why didn't you come in? I thought you were going home." I said, "Chris, you're not going to believe what I just saw." And I told her. She goes, "You're right. I don't believe you." So the next night, that day, it was a Saturday, and no, yeah, because it was Good Friday, and the next day was Saturday. I got my spotlight from my apartment, went back to Oxford, and I wanted her to see it, and she had an indoor radiant pool room with an Olympic-sized pool. I was like, "Come on, stay outside at night with me and watch. We'll stay in one of our vehicles." She goes, "There's no way I'm staying in the vehicle." So in her pool room, there's these massive windows, and I spotted that black dog man wolf or whatever, but it was behind the rock garden, crouched down, laying down with a group of gray wolves. Pardon me. She finally did get to see that. And after that, she stayed in Massachusetts for a little while at her sister's house with her dogs. She ended up moving, though. She ended up moving to Milford, Connecticut, where the ocean is. Her house was smack dab in the middle of the woods in Oxford.
Can I ask what your heritage is?
Mine, I'm Irish and Russian.
Okay.
But there was this weird thing. When I was at my friend's house, I would cook for her and her pets. And there was something that we were watching NCIS, and Ziva David was kicking ass. And I said something in my head. I was like, "Wow, she's kicking ass." And my friend saw that my lips did not move, but she heard me telepathically.
Oh, wow.
And she goes, "I just heard what you said." Excuse me. I'm like, "I didn't speak." She goes, "No, but you said she's kicking ass." She goes, "I saw that your lips did not move." She goes, "But I heard you." And this would happen a few times when something would be on the roof of her house. We thought a branch fell on it or something, but I think it was that thing. Whatever was out there, that dog man thing, I think that it was lurking for a while, because for a few months in the wintertime, she's the one that taught me, because I went to nursing school at the age of 17 and 18, and Chris taught me everything in nursing. And so she took me under her wing. So she was my mentor. So we were best friends since I was like 17 years old. And so she was very, very sickly, and she started getting sick in 2004, 2005. So me from working I didn't have to go to work for nursing until 4 p.m. to 1 a.m. So I would take care of her and her dogs and her house while I was, before me going to work. And it's just that a lot of words. So I was there a lot of times at nighttime on my weekend, because I had weekends off. Every weekend I was off. And in the wintertime, there are a lot of weird happenings outside. And it's so dark that even the lights around her house was not bright enough. It was so dark because our house is smack dab in the middle of the woods, and there's no other light sources in the woods to see. You couldn't even see your hand in front of your face. But that's all I got.
Pam, I wanted to ask a follow-up question for you. Based on what you saw those times,
Yes.
regarding the Bigfoot specifically, did what you see make you think more of a human or an ape, or something that was not really related to either?
Both. I didn't know. Okay, it was like 7 o'clock in the evening, and I was just outside having a cigarette break at my mom's, and I thought that they were these construction guys by this wire thing that I was very concerned about, of all these vines wrapped around this wire going to the telephone pole, and it was leading to the building. And I never said anything to anyone. I was just always thinking of it. my name used to get called all the time at nighttime if I was going to my car, leaving to go home to Danbury or Newtown. And I just, one evening it was like warm out. It was nice and warm out. I saw three. I thought they were construction guys, little tree guys. I'm like, oh, okay, because they're by the area that I was concerned about. So I thought they were construction guys, and their hair was gorgeous, like long 80s shape type hair, and very well groomed. And I didn't realize that they were three Bigfoot right there. I was taking video of birds, orioles and cranes that I've never seen in that area before. And when I replayed it, when I saw those three Bigfoot, there was this other Bigfoot jumping off of this enormous steep cliff carrying two trees, a tree on each shoulder, and it still had the roots. I couldn't believe it. It was my mother's little iPad Touch, and I was just out there recording the birds, so I wasn't even thinking that they were Bigfoot at the time. They looked very human. I thought it was three guys gonna be doing tree work around the area that was getting close to the wires that's connected to the building. I thought that's what they were there for. Those three looked very human. And so did the first one that I saw at the lake, that by the river at my apartment in Danbury. It was crazy. And then after Hurricane Katrina, it was the Saturday after Hurricane Katrina, Westcon jogger was jogging down Newtown Road, and the apartment that I used to live on was directly across where this bridge is. I saw this huge female sitting down on a bank with a couple of toddlers. As this jogger is going by with his MP3 player in his ears, it threw this huge boulder at him, and it just missed his ankles.
Really?
I mean, this boulder was massive. I'm like, did you see that? Yeah, my foster daughter and her boyfriend witnessed it with me. But at that time, I only had a flip phone, so...
I was just going to ask you if you've ever talked to anyone else in the areas that you've had sightings, if they've had sightings as well.
Oh, yeah, they were calling me crazy. My older cousin that lived with us, her sister wouldn't admit it to her, but she tried to get me put in the mental ward at Danbury Hospital because my mother's, all her Apple devices were connected. So my mother gave me two of them to use, and she had her tablet. And so I saw a message that my cousin was trying to have my mother committed into the mental ward because I keep seeing these Bigfoots. But I had a lot. I still have some video and picture evidence.
Oh, wow. That's extremely interesting. Pam, thank you for chatting today about this. If you ever want to share anything, my email is on the screen. It's bigfootsociety@gmail.com. But thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
You too.
It's extremely interesting account from Connecticut. Thank you, Pam. Hey, One Chance. This is Jeremiah from Bigfoot Society. How's it going, man?
I'm doing fine.
Great.
I live in Oklahoma. I live in Southwest Oklahoma. And, I have a Jesus picture hanging by my doorway. And I live on a street of Cross. It was called Crossland Circle. And I live in Lawton, in the Lawton area. And when it hit my wall, the Jesus picture, something was knocking on my wall. So I thought it was weird, and I went outside, to check it out. And I thought somebody was playing around in the snow, because it was snowy outside. When I seen the footsteps, it had 3 different footsteps inside of it, one big one, a medium-sized one, and a baby footprint. And they were in the snow. And the first thing I told myself was somebody's got this kid out here in the snow, man. And I'm going to follow this track to see where this, because I heard the crunching in the snow, you know, and I got quiet and I sit up against the wall. You know, I got military mindset. So I followed it all the way around the corner to the edge of the apartments because it was crunching around in the snow. So when I seen this smell was stinky, I was following a stinky smell and I had to lean to my right to get fresh air because that's how bad the smell was as I was approaching. And there was this swimming pool with snow covered up. And I seen light emitting from the bottom of the pool, like white light, but it was covered with snow. I thought that was weird, so I stopped approaching. I was behind it looked like a bush at the time. It was kind of far away, but it was hairy and it had a foul odor. When I seen the 3 footsteps in the snow, the first thing my mind said was, son or wife, stay in dad's footsteps. Stay in my steps. So that's when I put a camera up outside my door. I said, something weird is going on. If somebody has a kid joking around, I'm going to get down to the bottom of this. The name Buford, like the mathematical book, the name Buford came to me. And I believe, it's going to sound kind of preposterous a little bit, but I believe he likes that name instead of Bigfoot. It's a mathematical book, Buford. There's a lot of gold numbers and alphabets coming from the middle of his forehead, like he has a split in his forehead. You want to talk about the oldest monkey known to existence, the oldest monkey. And I've heard a lot of stories. See, we live in Oklahoma, so right here there's a hospital called the Indian Hospital. And next to it's a big field, country field, okay? There's cows out there. Sometimes there's cows, sometimes there's not. But they put hay bales out there. And my uncle works in that field. And this thing was sitting in the field one time. And they approached it. They got their shotguns and they went out there. They said, well, something's sitting there, sitting upright by the hay bales. So as they approached it and got closer to the hay bales, it got up and started walking away. You know, it was walking away. As it walked away, it disappeared on them. You know, it just disappeared, you know. So you come to Oklahoma, you're going to find him. You're going to see him walking around. You're going to see a glimpse of him. Or right now, he's across the street from Target, I believe, in this area where these fields are, because you know how the summertime heat looks when the hot heat goes over the road and you're far back and you're approaching. I seen something hairy. I don't know if people were joking around or, you know, playing a prank, but I seen from far away. I pulled to the side of the road and I stopped my car, you know, because I seen gray go across the road and I said, that's weird. You know, something gray is moving and that's weird. I said, let me pull over and see what's going on. So I stopped. A guy way in front of me, he stopped his truck and got out because he seen something as well. I was still back some, but I stopped to analyze what I was seeing with my eyes. And the only thing I could see was 3 hairy things going across the road to the bushes. They were going to the bushes. So for it to be 100 degrees outside, 108, 107, that's crazy right there. If somebody's joking around in a monkey suit, or you can faint, man, you can fall out and faint. You know, you can die from the heat. So whatever this hairy thing is, it's out here. Also, the little gray guys, the 4 feet tall gray guys, man, we are not alone. I walked up on this guy. I'm trying to let people know. I walked up on him 3 feet away from him. And he's in a see-through ball, rainbow lights. I went out to the same place to see him over and over. And he was there every time I went. So that's Oklahoma. Oklahoma is very mysterious. If you want to get to the mysterious stuff, you come to Oklahoma. This is where you're going to find it at. I just wanted to share that with you guys, let y'all know my Bigfoot story and the crazy, strange things I see around here at 4 o'clock in the morning when I leave to go to work. Or, you know, I was delivering papers one night. I seen a gnome run across the street.
Oh.
I never believed in gnomes, you know, never ever. I always see them in the gardens and dollar stores and, you know, but I never believed in them. I thought they were just, you know, things for the gnome gardens, you know, until I actually seen one run across the street at night. I said, that's weird. Cats don't wear birthday hats. That's the first thing I said. It had a pointy hat. It was a dark shadow. It was a ball, round ball, but the legs looked weird. They looked like pencil legs. I seen pencil legs running across the road. It could barely jump up the curb is what I saw. And it's leading me to want to buy a dash camera for my car. I haven't bought me one yet, but I kind of really want to get me one now. And when you come to Oklahoma, man, you'll see a lot of crazy stuff here.
It's on my list to do that next year, actually.
Okay, cool. And if you ever do, you just get a hold of me and I'll show you around the town or whatever, man. I got cameras too, and I got stuff I carry with me too. So I'll keep you safe if anything ever. I'm into stuff like that too. So I took actual photos of the footprints. I have the photo still. And that was the first thing my mind said, take the photos, because you have 3 footprints in the snow, all different sizes in the same footprint. So that's somebody telling someone, stay in my steps. And it makes you think, you know, stay close to dad or stay close to mom or stay in my steps so that we can stay close together. The main thing I noticed was there's power lines behind the house where he's staying close at, walking in that trail by all the power lines. So power has something to do with the way he is, the way he travels maybe. I think he's interdimensional. I think he owns the universe, and he can disappear on anyone. He can go anywhere, and he travels all over, and that's why you never catch him. He could disappear right in front of your face. So what does that tell you? Interdimensional. There has to be fuzzy gravity going on, and there's dimensions that you can travel through and disappear without being caught by anyone. But you have to be able to interdimensional travel, and that's what he can do, I believe.
It's very interesting. It does line up with a lot of other reports I've heard about being near power lines.
Yes.
But thank you for sharing what you've experienced so far. Please feel free to reach out if things continue.
I will, and I followed you too, so
fantastic.
I'll be here with you. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Hey, Lilo, this is Jeremiah from Bigfoot Society. Feel free to share what happened to your relatives out there in Washington.
So this was probably back in the late 70s, early 80s. And this is there's been more accounts from my dad, but this one I thought was pretty cool. They were hunting and they had split up, and my dad went down into a gulch. He heard something crashing and splashing in the water, and he went down through some trees. He said he never laid eyes on it. He saw just a bunch of movement. By the time he got down to the water, this thing is up and out of the water and going up the hill. And my uncle is over top of him going, get out of there, get up here. And so they meet up. He climbs back up to my uncle. He's like, did you see that? My dad's like, no, I heard it though. He goes, we got to get back to camp. Come on, let's go. So they grab their rifles and head back apparently. And on their way back to camp, they're following footsteps. And apparently the weather or the ground is soft enough, and there's footsteps, and they're seeing fur along the way, evidence of a Bigfoot, and they get back to camp. and this thing has gone through their elk camp, turned over ice chests, things like that, and they're pretty mortified. Later on that evening, I guess, they're hearing really loud screams and, the sounds that they make. He says, I can still hear it today. It's bone chilling and gives me goosebumps every time I think about it. And this was in Monastash Ridge, Silver Forest area in Washington, Eastern Washington.
Okay. Gotcha. That is extremely interesting. I'm looking that up right now. Silver Forest, Washington.
Now, I don't know if the Silver Forest part is, if you can actually look that up, or is that just what the hunters in that area would call it? And I think it's a grove of trees, silver bark trees that are pretty out of place in that area. So I think it's just known as Silver Forest, but the area is Monastash Ridge.
And so, interestingly enough, when you look it up on Google Maps, and I don't know if this is accurate or not, but there are multiple listings nearby for Mel's Hole.
Yep.
From our belt. Is that accurate?
That sounds familiar.
Wow. So potentially an area of high strangeness for sure.
My stepdad also hunted in the area back in the late 70s, and he's got a count as well. Him and his buddies were up hunting, and they started following tracks. It ended up looping around and following them. I think they were probably in their late 20s, maybe at the time. So there's definitely some activity, noises, screaming, tracks. But no, I haven't heard any stories of people actually seeing one.
It's an interesting area I haven't heard a lot from. So thank you for putting that on my radar. Absolutely. And for sharing for a few minutes. I appreciate it.
You bet. You guys have a great morning.
You too. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Hi, this is Jeremiah.
I am one of the lucky knowers, my friend.
All right.
I've actually done at least one other podcast, but it was like a private thing, and pay money for it. And this needs to be known to everybody without having to pay.
Yes, sir. And what's your name?
My name is Hans. I'm not going to give you my last name just for a lot of issues, but I am a registered nurse, and you can look me up in North Carolina. I want you to take this number down, 231.
Oh, hold on. This is live. Hold on. Everyone could get this number that you're giving me right now.
I don't care, because guess what?
All right.
It verifies that I'm a registered nurse in the state of North Carolina.
Okay.
It contributes to my validity.
Fair enough.
I was also a firefighter paramedic for 15 years in Kinston, North Carolina. I've been an OR nurse for 20 years.
All right, Hans.
Yeah.
Feel free to whatever you would like to share. Yes, exactly. Go right ahead.
Okay, so the year was 1980. I was a junior in high school. My father had just passed away at Christmas, December 15th. And my uncle, consoling me, took me on a hunting trip in January to the Goshen swamp, and it's in Duplin County, North Carolina. I'm right in the middle of the state. I live in Harnett County, so I'm kind of right in the middle of the state. I'm from Eastern North Carolina. I'm from Goldsboro originally. However, I have a lot of dealings down around. We have two major rivers that run through North Carolina, Cape Fear River, New River. I was on a tributary of the Cape Fear River. It actually splits. There's the North Cape Fear, there's Northeast Cape Fear River, and there's the regular Cape Fear River. Kind of splits around a little place called Kenansville. Anyway, so to get back to the story, it was a fall day, about maybe 40. But no, it was not fall. It had to be winter. It was probably about. It was a really warm day in North Carolina, about 45 degrees. My uncle had took me out. He had been worried about me. He was an officer in the military. He come and got me. I was actually in Washington, D.C. when my father passed. So my uncle was stationed at Andrews Air Force Base. So he come and got me. So he wanted to take me out. I had a gentleman, very nice man. I had met him at church. He said, I've got some land if you'd like to go hunting. I said, yes, sir, please. So I had told my uncle about it. He said, hey, that's great. Let's go down there. We went to a place in Duplin County. It's right outside of Keaningsville, North Carolina. You can look it up on the map. We were in a field. It was a sweet potato field. My uncle said, I want you to sit in this tree. As they come out, you can see them. And I'm going to walk down to the other deer stand on the other side of the property. So he walked probably about a mile away from me, got in the tree stand, and he sat down. Well, I had seen some deer come out from a corner in the field. It was just a perfectly square field. But in one corner, I kept seeing all these does, these deer come out. I'm like, you know what? If I could go down there, I could probably get a really good shot at them because I was so very far away, and I don't like taking long shots. I was like, okay. So where I was at, and if people don't understand, in North Carolina, we have a swamp called the Goshen Swamp. It feeds into a tributary that is the Angola Refuge, and then Angola Refuge runs down to Onslow County, where about 95% of that wetland down there is owned by Camp Lejeune and Fort Bragg. So it's all military. So I was on this tributary, this little tiny tributary, and it was in the Goshen Swamp, and I was on a peninsula. And the peninsula was about 40 foot long. And I heard something come through the water. I said, okay, that's a deer. I was sitting on the edge of the field. I had a field behind me, a big old sweet potato field. There was cut sweet potatoes out there. In North Carolina, we get the sweet potatoes out, and a lot of times there's a lot of stuff that's left. So, people, come and get the sweet potatoes. But the deer love it as well. And it's also a food source for other things, like I found out. So I was sitting on a peninsula, and what you do is you have to back your tractor down this little path. It's about 8.5, 9 foot wide, because I had to have a fairly decent sized tractor to go down. About 9 foot wide. It's got trees on both sides. It goes all the way down, and it goes into a little landing that the gentleman had built down, a little wood landing. What it is, he would back his tractor up, throw his power take off into the water, and he would just irrigate from the swamp. That's what everybody around this area does. They irrigate from Goshen Swamp because it's fed by so many tributaries. So I was at the end of this. There was no irrigation pipe, and I was at a 40-foot long area with trees on both sides. It was a peninsula. I had water on the right, water on the left, water out front. I had the field to my back. Completely and totally painted and camouflaged. You could not see me if you wanted to. Heard something come through the water. I said, okay. So deer, it sounds really big. I was waiting for him. Sat there for a second. I was just looking and listening. Could hear it. It would stop for a second, but it would come back. And I said, okay, it's going to come up on this peninsula because all the other deer had come out of this area to feed. I said, okay, so that's a big old buck. He's already sent these does out in the field. He's going to come up, and I'm going to get a shot at him. Well, no. That was not the case. What come out of that swamp was a leg like I had never seen before. The thigh had to be at least 3 or 4 foot around. I mean, it was huge. I could see the muscles. I'm like, I said, this guy has really just jacked my whole hunt, because I thought he was in a ghillie suit. So when it come up, I said, no, that's not a man. But my whole entire body, from my head to my feet, went pure white hot, basically, like I was having like a hot flash. It was numb. I was looking at that thing. It was looking at me. It turned its head and looked at me, and it saw me because it made eye contact. I looked at it. It had hair flowing down its shoulders to the right and left, and had a mustache and a goatee and a beard that went all the way down to the genitals. I couldn't really see the genitals because there was so much hair hanging. It's kind of real. It's like a mop hanging on somebody's crotch. I couldn't tell. But it was massive. It was at least 6, 7, 8 foot tall. It had to be. But it stepped up. And it stepped up right on the, I saw one leg, and then it, like a fluid motion, come up. I mean, almost like it glided up. It was kind of surreal. And it stepped on the side of that path right there beyond the little trees that separated the water from the land, and it stood there. And then it turned, but when it turned, it had to turn from its waist. It did not turn from its neck. It was almost like the neck, and I'm a nurse, and I was a paramedic for 15 years. The neck and the shoulders were almost like they were fused together. You know, like you'd have a spinal fusion.
Mm-hmm.
And he turned, but when he turned, I mean he, because he didn't have no breath, but when he turned with his waist and basically showed me his front silhouette, or his, because it was getting late, the sun was going down, I could see the sun behind him, but still, he was massive. I could see him still. He looked at me, and I took my gun off safety. And when he heard click, I swear to you, he cocked his head like he was curious. And when he cocked his head, I just looked at him, and I basically just took my hands away from my weapon. And I sat there. He looked at me. He knew I wasn't a threat without that rifle. He turned, he stepped back into the water, and I could hear him sloshing off fast. Well, I don't really know what happened, but when I kind of come to or come out of whatever I was, maybe just, I don't know, I mean it had to be just pure adrenaline and just fright, rush. But when I come out, my uncle was over the top of me, yelling at me, "Are you okay? Please talk to me." And I finally saw him. I said, "Did you see it?" He said, "No." "What?" And I said, "That thing that come out of the swamp." He said, "No, I didn't see it, Hans." I said, "It was right there." I said, "It stood there." He said, "Was there a man in a ghillie suit?" I said, "No. That's what I thought it was, but it's not." And I showed him where the shoulder was on the tree. He said, "Hans, this can be right." I said, "Uncle Judd, well, in North Carolina, in the swamps, we have something called duckweed. Don't know if you're familiar with duckweed at all. Have you ever heard of it?"
I've heard of it, but I'd have to look it up.
Okay, so what it is, it's a really green, fine little weed that grows on top of the water, okay? And if you go in that water, when you come out, it has a tendency to cling to you a little bit. And so when this thing stepped out of the water, I can tell it had this duckweed around its nipples, okay? His pecs were huge. His pecs were like balloons. They were like two huge red balloons, as big as you can get. That's what his pets looked like. They were covered with hair down to about 3/4 of the way from his nipple, and I could see his nipple. And it was very dark brown. So I could tell it was a male because it wasn't a female because it didn't have hanging breasts or sagging breasts or, pendulous breasts. So I knew it was a male. And I could tell the duckweed was around his chest, right there by his nipple line. So when he stepped back in the water, he got it on. When my uncle said, "What did you see?" I said, "Uncle Justin, I don't know what I saw, but I saw it." He said, "Where did it come from?" I said, "Out of the swamp." And it walked over here. And he took one step over a 9-foot path, okay? So it was on the edge. When it stepped up, it was on the edge. It took one step, 5 foot. The next step was off of the peninsula in the water. I later measured it with a measuring tape that I had in my truck, and it was almost a 10-foot span. So he had to have a 5-foot wide span. So I knew didn't well, me being a nurse, paramedic, 35 years, or, every how long I had in years of experience, I know that I can't step 5 feet without jumping. And I knew that wasn't a man, and it couldn't be, because there was no suit, there was no hat. It was a Sasquatch. And my uncle said, "Well, what?" And I told him what he saw. He said, "Well, let's go down there." I said, "No, sir. No, sir. No, sir." He said, "We have 2 weapons. Let's get in there. High-powered rifle. Let's get in there." I said, "All right. I'll walk down there with you." We walked 28 yards, 28 steps, 28 yards. I said, "That's where he come up." And when we looked into the swamp, you could see a path about 8 foot wide. And if you know anything about stained water, dark water, anything right, the water is stained because of the leaves and stuff. Mm-hmm. But when you stir up bottom silt, it makes a path. You can track anything you want if it's standing on the bottom. And this thing was standing on the bottom, it's walking. So he thought of path. He said, "Hans, what comes through there?" I said, "I don't know. I can't tell you." He said, "Let's see how deep the water is." I said, "Okay." We got a stick. We put it down in the water. We pulled it up. The duckweed was at 6 feet. So when I saw duckweed on his chest by his nipples, that tells you he had to be at least 2 foot taller than 6 foot.
Right.
Because we stuck that stick down as far as we could into the Goshen swamp, and it stopped at 6.5 foot, okay? We really couldn't tell. I had to tape measure. It's like 6.8, something like that, 6.5, 6.5 foot, okay? So, just on his nipple line, I know that thing was 8 foot tall. It had to be. Well, when my uncle saw that, he said, "Let's go now." I said, "Why?" He said, "Just run." Of course, when my uncle says run, he's a badass. But when he says run, I know if he's in front of me, I'm in trouble. So I took off. I was 15 years old. I was as fast as a rocket. I was in the truck, huffing and puffing. He came in and said, "Get in the truck, let's go." I said, "Why?" He said, "I'm going to take you down the road, let's go." We got in the truck. He got in and I said, "Listen, something was walking around my deer stand, and it was walking." He said, "I thought it was a person. I was getting ready at any time for someone to come out and say that I had to leave because I was on, this property hunt. Of course, we had written permission and everything, but he thought somebody walking around. He said, "Man, son's been walking around my stand for 30 minutes. Well, his stand was about 100 yards down from where it was still on the edge of the swamp, but it walked around his stand in the woods and then walked into the swamp and walked over by me, evidently. That's why he told us we need to get out of there. We got it. I never said a word. I bet you I went 15, 18 years. So I'm getting ready to kind of try to validify my story just a little bit. But If you look on the BFRO website, I have never posted that, just not have a time to do it. But if you'll look in Duplin County, maybe, yeah, Duplin, Duplin, Duplin County. If you look at that in North Carolina, okay, you will see that there's a game warden, sheriff, deputy, whatever he was law enforcement. So anything he says is municipal in court, okay? It's municipal. So whatever he says, he can't lie about it. If he does, he's in really deep trouble. So he came out about 4 or 5 years after me. He saw a reddish-brown creature, which was the same thing I saw. It was reddish-brown. It wasn't black.
Yep.
Reddish-brown. It's almost like an orangutan looking. But, I mean, the hair was probably 4 or 5 inches. You know, when his arms, if you ever seen Clint Eastwood, Any Which Way You Can, when Clyde Renshausen and busted that guy in the mouth, his hair was about that long. It was about 6 inches, 4 to 6 inches on his arms, okay? Back of his arms. His hands, no hair, except right on the top of his hand. But his fingernails, nasty, but they looked like ours, but they were long. They were probably maybe half an inch long, maybe. Had a bunch of grit and stuff on it. He had sticks, little bit tiny twigs and stuff, all in his fur. You know what I mean? Like he'd walk through something, you know. I saw a couple of cat briars. Cat briars are like blackberry bushes. I saw a couple of cat briars that were up on his neck a little bit. But I mean, it wasn't nothing. It wasn't nothing that anybody couldn't endure. I mean, I would pin myself if I got cat briars on my neck. But he acted like he didn't have anything to worry about. And he certainly didn't have anything to worry about with me because I wasn't going to do anything. At the time, I really couldn't move. I couldn't really do anything. I was, I've always said, I'll shoot one of them. If I ever see them, I'll shoot one. No, you won't. Because you know why? You will be so amazed by the size of that. You're like, you know what? If I do that and I miss or anything happens, this thing is going to rip me to pieces while I'm alive. And so, he didn't never show any aggression. He just acted like he was pissed off because I was sitting there and he couldn't go and gorge himself on sweet potatoes. So he never made a sound other than him walking. He never grunted. He never yelled. He never huffed. I could hear his breathing. His lungs have got to be at least 3 times the size of ours. I could hear him breathing. I mean, I could hear him breathe. I could see the steam come out of his nose. I knew he was breathing hard. I could hear him, but I couldn't move. I couldn't do it. If he come at me right now and I couldn't do anything. I was paralyzed, technically. Paralyzed. I'm an EMT. I've been a nurse for 20 years. I've never been so frightened I can't move. Well, I have once with him. I've never been so frightened I couldn't move, but that time I couldn't move. I never spoke to anybody about it until I found a game warden that was in the vicinity. He said he saw a tall creature drinking from the little stream creek that goes out of the back of Goshen Swamp. So I was in the front of Goshen Swamp. He was in the back. It's about 20 miles. He was in the back of Goshen Swamp. When he saw this thing, he said, and this is a wildlife officer now, so everything he says is supposed to be true. He said that thing was bent down, drinking water. But it kind of reminds me of biblical times. Jesus told everybody, hey, look, go down.
Right.
And anybody who just suckles out of the water that is not looking around, get rid of them. So this thing was actually picking up water in its hand and sipping, but looking at the same time. That shows intelligence way beyond any other animal. If you ever look at any other animal, they're going to be at water. This thing was picking water up with his hand and drinking it. He said it was drinking. Now, there is drinking by hand. He said that when he came across and the thing stood up and saw him, it walked off. Well, that was one account. The next account was in a little place called Chickapin, North Carolina. Look it up. It's on the Bigfoot site. This guy ran out. We put a lot of corn out for our deer. It's legal in North Carolina to bait deer, especially if it's going to be beneficial for them. We may shoot one or two, but we're benefiting a whole herd when we put food out. Well, this guy went out to check his pile to make sure the deer were getting what they needed, to kind of look for any big old deer. And guess what? Big, reddish, brown thing sitting in his corn pile eating his corn. Not 30 miles from where I saw mine.
Oh, wow.
So I've never told anybody this. I've tried to get a hold of a lot of people. I'm going to say it on your podcast now if that's okay. I don't know what my time limit is, but in North Carolina, I have a feeling that the Bigfoot come down out of the Appalachian Mountains.
Mm-hmm.
They come down through the Uruguay National Forest, which is 30 minutes or 45 minutes from my house. They walk down the Cape Fear River. You got to understand, the Cape Fear River is huge and it's vast, and not many people get on it, especially. So it comes past a place called Raven Rock State Park. Look it up on the internet. Raven Rock State Park is a park in Harnett County, Harnett, Harnett County. So in the middle of North Carolina, it's about 30 miles south of Raleigh, 10 miles south of Fuquay Arena. So you'll kind of understand where I'm at. But I knew a sheriff's deputy. There's never been any reported sightings in Harnett County. Cape Fear River runs down through here. We have a road called Golf Road, G-O-S, Golf Road. It's in the southern part of the county. It's right around Sharon Harris Nuclear Power Plant. So you understand, right around Sharon Harris, those woods are very vast around there, and they don't let people in there. They got roving patrols in Sharon Harris all the time. You'll never see them, but they see you. And if you get where you're not supposed to be, they will come get you. I promise you. But Raven Rock State Park butts right up to Sharon Harris. So on Golf Road, which is in the southern part of the county, or the northeastern part of the county, northwestern part of the county, it's very hilly. It's not flat by any means. It's almost sand hills. We're in the sand hills, basically. Not really sand hills. They're south, but we're in a very hilly situation. The elevations are greatly increased when you're here. And as you're going up and down, you can see all a number of things. But this guy went down Golf Road. He was a sheriff's deputy, legitimate sheriff's deputy. I know him. And he said as he was going down, when he got to the bottom of the ravine, he saw two guys fighting in the street. So he stopped his vehicle, flicked on his blue lights, hit his siren a couple of times, and lit everything up with his lights. Well, it's not exactly what he saw. What he saw was not two guys. It was two Bigfoot. He wouldn't really specify how big they were, at least 6, 7 foot. It might have been two males, a juvenile and a male being upset at each other. I don't know. They might have had a spat. I don't know. But he said each one of these things would pick each other up and slam their ass on the ground. He would roll around on the dirt, and he could see the dirt fly up and the grass fly, and then the other one would lunge at the other one, grab him, pick him up, and throw him on the ground. And I said, what did you do? He said, what can I do? One, I can't break that up. Two, I can't report that. He said, I turned my life off, turned around, went home. Amen. Praise God. Because what can you do? I mean, he yelled on interstate, hey, stop, quit. Hey, you guys, quit. They never paid him any mind, act like he wasn't even there, which means to me that they figured he was just insignificant. Even though he had a whole lot of firepower in that sheriff's court, he could have stopped if he wanted to, if it really got bad. But he just said, well, who's going to believe me, huh? I said, I do, because I've seen one. He's like, well, you're the only one. I said, why have you never reported it? You're a law enforcement officer. Why have you never reported it? I said, look, hey, explain what you saw. I say, no, I'm not going to do it. So it kind of leaves it to me to explain the story. There was one other sighting in Raven Rock that I talked to a guy, and he saw something walking down the bank of the river, but he didn't know what it was. He thought it was a guy, but it was too big to be a guy. And he never reported that. It's just something I have done on my own research. So there's been at least 2 sightings in Harnett County. But what I feel like is they're coming from the Appalachian Trail. They're go through Haywood County. They go down through Haywood County, and they go down the Yaw River until they get to Cape Fear. They take the Cape Fear all the way down to the coast. Now, the most Bigfoot sightings up to the other day that I was watching, the most sightings in North Carolina have been in Onslow County. Guess what? It's right at the beach.
Okay.
It's at the end of the Cape Fear River. But most of it, at least 1,000, 2, 3, 4. Again, there's no telling how many acres the military has down there. They have a bombing range. That's where all of our guys go to train, okay? So you can't go in there. So all that's restricted. You can look on the website, BFRO, ONLW, Onslow County, North Carolina. There's like 6 or 7 sightings in there. But they're all, within that time. I'm right down the road from Fort Bragg, Fayetteville, North Carolina. And I have got some audio of a guy, or I heard from one of the guys like, hey, one of you guys is way off track. He's like, what do you mean? He said, well, you got 15 team members. He said, one of them's off track. He said, no. I have 14 team members. And this was at night. This was infrared. He said, no, you got 15 because there's a guy over here flanking you to the left. Oh. He said, that's not one of my guys. I've got 14 guys. He said, well, something's flanking you to the left or to the right. And so they stopped, and they saw something. They couldn't tell what it was, and it walked off. And from then on, anybody from Bragg has been told, if you see anything like that, leave it alone. Just go away. Walk off, leave it. Don't mess with it. They've been told that at Bragg. Fort Bragg.
Wow.
Yes, sir.
You said you had audio of something? Or you just
talked to a guy? I had heard audio. Yeah, no, I had heard audio. He had it. I don't even know where he is anymore. He got deployed somewhere. He was a military guy. I can't even remember his last name. First name was John. Can't remember his last name.
Right.
But he had audio of that night they went on ops. He said, this is my audio. I'm like, what's flanking? He said, I don't know. He said, they don't know. I said, well, it was flanking. And I have also heard of one other story of a footprint being found on I-95 is the interstate that runs down through North. Right outside Fayetteville, there's swamp on both sides of the road. And I have had one other person tell me they saw something cross the road. They didn't know what it was.
Wow.
But it was down past Fayetteville, North Carolina on I-95. And it's a major interstate now. So, and I mean, I said, well, did anybody else see it? Like we're like running like 75 miles an hour down this road. No, we didn't. But she said they were running 70, 75 miles an hour. Whatever it was, this started out at one side, and they could see it, which tells me that the vehicle was going fast enough that they were close to whatever it was. And she said before we could ever get to it, it was already over the road and cleared the road and gone. And right there's 4 lanes of I-95 plus a 15 to 18 foot median, plus 2 guardrails. So whatever it was, ran across I-95 highway, jumped 2 guardrails, run across 18 feet, run across the other 3 lanes or 2 lanes of I-95 and run into the woods before they could ever get up on it. So, you know what? I'm a knower, my friend. And you know what? You're the first person who's done this on YouTube to have a podcast live like this. So I appreciate you very much.
Well, I appreciate you calling in for sure, Hans. And before we end our time, when you had that sighting when you were a lot younger, do you remember anything? Were you able to remember anything about the details of the face at all? Because you said you had some eye contact.
Well, yeah. So he had huge eyes. He had lids like ours, but I tell you what, the easiest way I can describe him, believe it or not, is the Sasquatch and the dang Jack Lynx.
Okay.
He wasn't that clear, okay?
Yep.
He had wrinkles. I could tell he had not really moles, but stuff on his face. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Stuff on his face. But it was very aged, like old, aged, tarnished leather. He had nothing on his nose. His nose was broad, but he had nostrils. It wasn't protruding. It was flat a little bit. His cheek, when his cheek come down, his bottom of his jaw stuck out just a little bit more than the top of it. I could tell because I had a side angle profile of him. But now when he turned to me, he had a beard. A beard. He had a beard and a mustache that went all the way down to his genitals. Couldn't really see genitals. Like I said, everything on him was matted. You know what? I never smelled a thing. You know what I smelled? The only thing I could smell was the water he stirred up.
Okay.
That's all I could smell. I couldn't smell him because he had evidently been in the water. And I don't know, they may walk through the water to get a bath. I don't know. All I could smell was almost like stagnant water. You know what I'm saying?
Wow. That's incredible.
But when he turned to me, I could see the duckweed. It was right below his breast at his nipple line, and it was all the way around his body. And I could tell that duckweed was 6 foot tall, so I know it wasn't a human. And he looked at me. He looked at me. I looked at him. And when I took my gun off safety, that's the last move I could do in my body. I said, click. And when I heard that click, and he heard that click, he looked at me and cocked his head. And I knew right then, I could see in his eyes there was intelligence there. You don't cock your head at something you have absolutely no clue about unless it's either been done to you before or you're conditioned for it. And he cocked his head like, what in the world are you going to do? And I don't know if he thought I was going to shoot him. I don't know. But I'm telling you what, I couldn't move. I couldn't do a thing. And I took my hands off my gun and I put them by my side. I showed him, I'm not a threat to you. And I swear he looked at me. When I took my hands off my weapon, that's all I could do. I couldn't move. I couldn't run. I couldn't yell. I couldn't talk. I couldn't say, hey, dude, what's up? Nothing. I could do nothing. I was done. I took my hands off, put them by my side. That's all I could do. It was like almost like submission maneuver. Here, you're the boss. You should do. And he looked at me, and it was like he didn't even care about me. He looked at me like, hey, okay, whatever. He turned, and when he stepped that one step, he was back in the water. And it's a 9 foot. And it's true. I've been through, I can go through a polygraph. I know what you want to, but I'm telling you, I know, I saw. And I've been waiting to tell this story to everybody for a long time. And I hope you get a whole lot of views from it, because I'm telling you what, it's the truth. And I've been trying. I went to the Bigfoot Festival in Marion, North Carolina. There's one in Marion, North Carolina. If you won't ever go down and get a chance, you give me a call, and I will be more than glad to give you any kind of information I can. And Matt Moneymakers come down once or twice.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, but it's a great time. It's in Marion, North Carolina. Look it up. I think it's like the 6th annual now. This coming year's the 6th annual. But anyway, thank you so very much for allowing me to tell my story after 55 years, or ever how many years it's been, 45 at least.
Hans, but, thank you so much for calling in. I appreciate it. It's an incredible account, and I just appreciate you taking the time to call in today, sir. Hello, this is Jeremiah.
Hi, Jeremiah. My name is Melody, and I just filled out a form. It didn't get my email in. But I do have just a quick little episode that happened to me and my boyfriend about 30 years ago.
Sure. Yeah, go right ahead. Thanks for calling.
Okay. So I'm 55. Let's start there. I'm 55 years old. And I live in Northern California. Specifically, I live between Yuba City and Grass Valley in the foothills. This is, anybody that's watching any of the news, they see like the park fires and everything. That's where I live. And I'm born and raised here, Shasta County.
Gotcha.
So my boyfriend and I, we were headed out, and we was like 19, 20. We'd had a couple beers, and we was flying down up here where there's a fork in the road. Off on the right-hand side, there's like a goal. I start to get a little chilly. It's like a green, like with a seasonal pond. So we get a lot of rain up here, and these ponds will fill up in the winter time and deplete in the summer. So we're driving by in our pickup truck, and he said, I'm in the passenger seat, he's driving, and Mark says, did you see that? And I said, no, I didn't see anything. And he slams on his brakes and he backs up, and we see what looks like red eyes. And at the time, both of our impression was that it was kind of like when an animal goes down and takes a drink and comes back up, with the head kind of going in the forward type motion. But these eyes were nothing like we'd ever seen before. They were glowing and red, and the movement of this animal, this creature, was a large, it wasn't a bear. There's bears up here, there's deers, there's elk, raccoons, foxes. I've got a skunk harassing me right now. It was none of these types of movement or animal. And I say to Mark, what is that? And he says, I don't know, but I'm going to get a look at it. So we back up maybe another foot or two, get out of the truck. I do not go far, right? I just get out, go stand kind of, with the door open, watching him. I'm not really quite sure. The thing is when this happens to you, your brain doesn't automatically, you're not processing. You're just in the moment, experiencing what you're experiencing. Your brain, there's no thought process. I don't know. I've heard other stories before, and they're like, I think I thought. No, there was no. For lack of a better description, your critical thinking is suspended while you're in this. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So I'm watching. Okay, so I'm watching. We live in a real religious area. A lot of churches. So we're thinking, is this God? He gets out and makes movement to go towards this thing. Moves like a freight train. A freight train. Just across, you hear, these are big trees. We have, willows and, sycamores are very prominent up here. You just hear just crashing. At this moment, I says, let's go. Silence, dead silence. You can hear nothing, no birds, no crickets. There is just dead silence. We can just barely hear what sounds like maybe pebbles kind of dropping, maybe settling, and then rocks start coming at us, landing within 1 foot of the truck. And that's it. I've had enough. I'm back in the vehicle. I'm screaming at him. I've started the car. I'm like, we're leaving. We are leaving. He, jumps in the car. We take off. We go maybe a mile. And when we get up a mile, there is another car, another vehicle there with, I don't know, maybe maybe 3 or 4 boys, and they look like they have absolutely seen a ghost. And they say to us, "What was that?" And we play completely stupid, but I can't even speak. They're going back and forth. They're yelling and go, "What was that? What was that?" And I just, at this moment, I can't really, this moment, I think my brain just shut off. There's just no more. You're not thinking. I'm crying. And all I can say is let's flip and go. Let's go. We're done. I've never gone back there. Never gone back.
Wow.
And like I said, so brief. So we never saw anything but the eyes. The only way that I've ever been able to describe it is like when you see the animation, mechanical animations, animals, like the dinosaurs, the way that the movement, it would dip down and kind of extend forward and come back up. And he just wanted to see what it was. I think the whole thing was, it felt like an hour, but I'll tell you, we were stone cold sober by the time it was over. We didn't talk about it. We did not speak about it. We never spoke about it. We never saw the guys in the car in the blue Volkswagen Bug again, and never spoke about it. We speak about it privately, but we just don't talk about it. We just don't. We both subscribe to your channel. I'm not even sure you might be listening. But that's what happened to me, and that's where I live. I live in Northern California.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. Can you remind me of what the year was for that again?
I was 19. I was born in 1969. So was 88.
Okay.
1988. And it was, it's not more than 5 miles from where I'm at, and I've never been up there again. I just don't go that way anymore.
I don't blame you. Wow.
No, we just don't. I feel lucky for two reasons. I feel lucky that I saw something. And people ask me, did you hear any growling? Did you smell? No, I don't remember any of that. I just saw this one motion. He saw more. I just saw the one motion of it go down, and then I heard the freight train and then the rocks. And that was enough for me. I've never gone back. Yeah.
You don't want to push him anymore after that, for sure. Oh man.
I didn't. I don't know. I didn't for a long time. For a long time, you try to convince yourself that it's other things, and then you just come to a point where you're like, no, nothing has red oval eyes like that. Nothing can move that way. What was throwing rocks at us?
Absolutely,
there was something. So that's my little story up here in NorCal.
Thank you for sharing your NorCal encounter. That was a wild one. I appreciate you calling in.
Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
You too. Please take a minute to help out the show by subscribing on YouTube, making sure you hit the bell so you don't miss any notifications, and share the episode on YouTube with a friend. Also, if you're listening to us on a podcast, thank you so much. Make sure that you're subscribed. Share the show with a friend. Really, it's all about sharing the show wherever you can. If you've had a Bigfoot encounter related to the following or know someone who has, please reach out to me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com or pass on my email. Here's a list. If you've had any encounters in Oregon, which I'm sure there's probably a few of you out there, please feel free to reach out immediately. You can use email bigfootsociety@gmail.com. A special thank you to all the Bigfoot Society Patreon and YouTube channel members. It's your support that helps keep the show going, and I extremely appreciate it. If you want to join in the fun, you can join over at patreon.com/the Bigfoot Society. I'll see you there. And again, thanks for listening.
Her and I can get on here and we can tell our stories. Maybe there's somebody else out there listening that's too afraid to tell their story. Maybe this will give them the courage to come out and not feel so bad about it. Who cares what anybody thinks? I know what I saw. I know what's out there. That's all I care about.
Let people know. Please let them know. If you ever see one of these things, you need to tell. Because if you don't, then shame on you. You know? Shame on you.